Welcome back to my 3D anime character series. Last time I showed a variety of techniques for setting up UV maps. This time I'll be walking through the process of setting up shaders and editing face normals directly to achieve some stylized shadows. So without any more delays, let's get to it. So first of all, what is a shader? Basically it's what calculates light, darkness, colour and any other effects applied to the surface of our model. The most common type is the diffuse shader, where the shading across the model appears more gradual. For the anime, manga and toon style, cel shading is more common, creating harder edges on our shadows. The shader I'm using here is the Genshin Impact character shader for Eevee, found on ArtStation. If you want to get hold of this, it costs $2 for the standard license that you can use to your heart's content for personal projects. I know, $2 is pretty steep. If you don't want to fork out, there are many tutorials on YouTube that show you how to set up a basic cel shader for yourself. This is something I threw together that you can recreate in the shader editor. However, it lacks features present in the Genshin shader. I personally make my models with the intent of exporting them for games. Once in an engine, it'll be running on a different shader code to what is being used within Blender, so its purpose is just to give a general idea of how it will look. While we're on the topic, if you're planning to export to Unity, I recommend the Real Toon shader on the marketplace, as it's one I've used for a while now. As for Unreal, I'm yet to pick up any for myself. However, Cartoon Cel Shader looks very promising, as it has the ability for texture-driven face shadows. So for the purpose of this video, I'll be using the Genshin shader from ArtStation, but you can use the shader setup I provided earlier to get similar results. The main feature it lacks is the ability to import a separate texture for the shadow colour. Instead, you're limited to just one. I may do a video on creating shaders in the future, but that isn't the focus of this video. If you get the Genshin shader, there will be documentation explaining how to append it into your project. You can also add it to your user library. You can access this through the preferences, then file paths. It should tell you where your default user library is, and you can simply drop the blend file there, or alternatively, you can create a new asset library folder. Once you have it in your project, you should find it under the surface section of your material. Then if you haven't already, press the yellow icon next to the base color and select image texture and open your texture map. To get the shadows to appear properly, make sure you have Eevee set in the render options, and under color management, set the view transform to standard. By default it's on Filmic or AGX on Blender 4.0. This setting desaturates your colours by default, so changing it will make it much more vibrant. Once done, set the viewport mode to render and add a sunlight to your scene. The position of this light won't affect anything, but its rotation will. You'll also need to untick shadows, otherwise you'll get a bit of artifacting. This is often one of the biggest limitations of cel shading, as it is basically using the vector of the light to overlay a shadow texture on your model. In the Arc System Works games, they assign lights per character that are separate to the environment's light source. This is done with the intent of creating very deliberate shadows. I'll talk about this more when we cover normal editing though. The limitation of this type of shader is often used to achieve a specific style. However, these limits can be circumvented by incorporating features of a diffuse shader as well. Both of the game engine shaders I mentioned earlier include these features, allowing them to work with more ambient light. But all in all, it's all about the style you're trying to achieve. Granblue Versus and Dragon Ball FighterZ avoid these features with the intent of making their games look more like an animated style. With all that said, let's return back to the material. Here you can tweak the shader settings, or you can open the shader editor window. If you want yours to look like mine, then you can follow the settings on the screen now, but it's worth playing with the options and working out what works best for you. Note that you can set colours for each of these options. I've actually created a separate shadow map for mine, so that the shadow tone is changed based on the location on the face. This texture is essentially a copy of the base texture with some areas set to a darker tone. This isn't a simple case of just darkening the texture though. In some cases you may want to change the saturation and hue of the shaded colour as well. This was the main reason I recommended splitting your colours out into separate layers when working on your texture, as it makes adjusting their values much easier later on. You can also create maps for aspects like specularity, which is specifically handy for highlights in the hair, but I'll talk about that another time. So let's move on to adding an outline to our model. We'll do this through a method known as inverse hull. This is where we create a slightly larger copy of the mesh to encapsulate it with inverted normals. Due to backface culling, this will make the new mesh only visible from the inside, resulting in an outline. This is simply done with the use of a solidify modifier. It's a method that doesn't always give the best results, as some areas can be problematic due to their geometry, but is one of the most straightforward ways to create the outline. The game engine shaders I mentioned earlier have a different method often built in, with a few options to play with, so you won't have to export your model with the solidify applied. Once again, it's there to give the general idea. If you want to use something for rendering within Blender, there are alternative ways to create the outline, but the simple solution would be to use a vertex group to patch up the issues that arise with this method. So I'm putting this in post because I kind of messed up the explanation a little bit, so here we go. What you got to do is you got to press add modifier, you press solidify. Now we've got this, so we set this offset to 1, we have fill ticked, and in normals we have flip and high quality. Now when we go into our materials, I've created a material here, but what you'll just do is you'll just press plus and you'll create a new material. So I'll just select the one I've got here. You press here, surface type, emission, and then you need to make sure back face culling is ticked. Now, if you look at these materials, these will be numbered. So this is position 0, and this is position 1. So if we were to add another material, this would be position 2. So now if we go back to here, in materials, you say material offset, and you put this to 1. Now you've got your outline. So now you've got that, all you need to do then is change this thickness. Depending on the size of your model, you might have to put it down. If you want to add a bit of color here, you can like change your color to something that is more suited to what you want. So that's basically how you add an outline to your character. But wait, there is more. So at the moment we've got this line here and this line around the iris that we don't want to be there. So the easiest way to fix this is if we're in edit mode, we can select these areas and then we can press P and we can press selection. This is how I would usually do it. It will put it into a new selection and then they won't have to solidify it on it. But there is an alternate, and you'll also see even if these were in a new selection, you still get this problem of this skin outline kind of overstepping the bounds. So what you do is you set up a vertex group instead. So if I press select on this, you'll see that the entire eye, all the details and everything for the eye are selected, as well as this inner line here of the eyelid, so to speak. Now you can assign these by you select a face or an edge or a vertex or whatever, you press assign and it will add it to whatever group you've got selected. You need to make sure your weight's on 1 as well when you do so. So if we then go back into our modifier, we then need to select this vertex group that we've created and assign it. Now you'll see that the outline's completely gone. But if I were to press this button, it will invert. So now we've got this outline back, but then all the issues we had around the eye are now gone. That's because of this factor. So if we put this all the way up, you can see the outlines trying to be created. As we pull it down, these lines basically disappear. But there's a bit of a weird glitch that happens when we get too far. I think it's because the outline's trying to go too far the other way. So I tend to put this at 0.1 and then that fixes it. You might have to adjust it to kind of suit you. And I think that's about it for the outline. So let's move on to something else. Now let's move on to the monumental task that is custom normals. There is a lot to this topic and at times it can be pretty hands-on. Here I'll be covering a few solutions, but in the future I plan to explore this topic a lot more. So first of all, what are normals? Well, in layman's terms, they basically affect how the surface of our mesh processes light. In a way, when we edit a normal, we're adjusting the direction in which the corner of the face is orientated. Whenever we create some geometry, normals are automatically calculated by Blender. That is what creates this shaded look of our model. Options like smooth shading and auto smooth adjust how the normals are generated. For example, you can set the angle limit to create these hard edges. These are created by switching the corner normals of two faces from being shared to being separate. You can also do this manually by right-clicking while in edge mode and selecting Mark Sharp. If you want to view the normals like I am doing here, you can access it through this drop down at the top. Then just click this icon. With the auto-generated normals, you'll find that our cel shading results in jagged edges. There are many solutions to this, but I'll start with the simplest first. In the description will be a link to a plugin called Abnormal. Once downloaded, go to Preferences, Add-ons and install it. Once done, wait a second and it should appear in the list. Make sure it's checked. If all is working correctly, when you press N on the 3D viewport, you should see a tab called Abnormal. To start editing, select the area and simply click Start Normal Editor. The controls for the editor are listed on the right hand side. With everything selected, click Target Normal Mode and select Sphereize Normals and then Confirm. Now when you move the light around, you'll find the shadows are now smooth. You will have to make some adjustments when you eventually try to connect the head to the body, but I'll cover that in a future video. You can do the same for the eyes, but in my honest opinion, it doesn't look very good. So you have a couple of options. First is to set the eyes up with an emission material, similar to how we did the outline earlier, and assign a texture. This will result in the eyes never being in shadow. The alternative is to make the shading of the entire eye snap in and out. So I'm going to splice this footage in showing how to set up the eyes in a different way to using an emission material. The reason I'm doing this is because I found when I was trying to record the actual footage to demonstrate it, was having a bit of an issue that I can't really work out why it's happening, but I know how to fix it. So it might not happen to you, you might be alright, but basically at the moment everything's spherized, so you'll see the light goes straight across the eyes normally. But what we want is, so when the light's like here, this will pop. So if I put it to about here. So the way the light's moving, I've just set up an animation for it. I'm not going to show how to do that, but you should be able to find a video on YouTube or something showing you how you can animate something. So all that's happening is the light's turning on the Z axis around and around, so I can basically see the changes like in real time. So what we want to do with these selected, we want to press Align on the Y and the Z, so it'll do this. And then if we then rotate this, we should be able to, because I've stopped the light here, if we turn this, we should see eventually it'll pop. So we want it in a position where it just pops. So it's probably around here somewhere, right? Now we want to symmetrize this over to the other side. So for me it's the X-axis, so if I press X, it should symmetrize that over. You can tick this so they always auto mirror, but you'll see in a second there's a bit of a weird issue if it happens again, that is. So if I press play now, you see that on this one we have this line come across, whereas this one just pops in. So the way to fix this, it's a bit annoying, but you have to do it this way. So you go in again, and you want to have the light until it's in a position where we can see this. So this normal's pointing this way, but if I were to select the face, you'll see that these normals are pointing off in this direction, which is not following this. So to do this, you need to go copy, store active normal, then select the face, and you'll see these ones are wrong, but these ones are correct. So you press paste and they'll all be correct. And then there's another position here that's the same. So if we press paste, and this one here is probably the same. I think this one's alright actually, it looks alright. So if you press play again, these should pop now. But this over this side is still the same. But because all these normals are pointing the same direction, you can just keep pasting until you fix the ones that are messing up. I'm not entirely sure why this is happening. There's obviously a bit of a glitch here with the plugin. It's also a bit awkward because of the position of the faces and that. I'm trying to select them, but because I'm not sure if there is a way. There is a way to hide, I think. Oh, here, hide selection. So if you wanted to hide a selection, you can do that to make it a bit easier to select the ones. But that should be about it. That should fix it then. So this method is basically you have this pop in and pop out with your normals on the eye. So it's not ideal, but it's kind of another solution to just having them always lit up with the emission material. I was going to cover an advanced setup for face normals at the end here, but I think it may be better served in a separate video and in a more hands-on format. I was also going to move on to hair next, but there are many more face shading methods that I feel need to be explored first. The advanced setup I have here gets messed up when animating the face through blend shapes. There are solutions to fixing them, however they only solve the problem within Blender and not within a game engine. So if you don't want to miss out on those videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a like and a comment. As always, thanks to my patrons. All videos released there a week early and a link is in the description. Now considering you made it this far, you'll definitely be interested in learning about UV mapping and texturing for faces, so you can do so by clicking here. And if you want to do none of that, would you kindly bugger off?
Maybe.